Great. All right. All right. Just show me with thumbs up. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Everyone can see my screen? Yay. Great. Okay, perfect. So here we go. All right, everyone. So today, last week, we're going to talk about something completely different than last week. Last week, we were talking about the birds of the Holy Land, and they're mentioning in our ancient sources. Today, we're going to talk about a completely different subject that I must tell you, and I want to be honest with you, that is a subject that is always a little bit tricky for me to talk about. As some of you already know, I come from Israel. I just moved to Colorado about 2 years ago. And in Israel, the discussion about the subject we're going to talk about is still tense, but is way more casual and way more common, I think, than it is here, especially because of the past and the history that we have here in the United States with, part of our discussion today, which is color and ethnicity and race and roots. And obviously those things here in America are very sensitive due to, our pretty recent history, not too long ago, where things here were completely different, and the subject in the United States is very sensitive, but in a very interesting way. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of racist conversation and racist atmosphere in Israel as well, just like here. But over there in Israel, it is very common to talk and for people just to come to each other and and to raise question about your background, right? So so often people will come to me and ask me, hey Noam, how come you're so dark, right? What are your roots? Where are your family come from? And this is my little preparation. This is our talk today that involves a lot conversation about how where we come from, and looks and colors and ethnicity. So we're going to talk about all of this, and of course with a lot of respect and understanding to all. So let's start. I think that we will start with some general description of American Jews. And what do I mean by that? I mean, how do we see American Jews, right? And if I didn't mention today, the title of our talk is Colors in the Jewish World, or the different colors in the Jewish world. And I'm starting with with the reason that made me talk about it. And the reason that made me talk about it was when I first came to the US, was before I started really living here 2 years ago, was about 9 years ago. And I was amazed to see, again, as we see on the screen, how do we, meaning people in the world, right? People of other faiths and traditions, see American Jews, or what do we know or think about American Jews, and also how they see themselves. And if we generally speak, mostly, and I know that I have here, famous American Jews. We can see Adam Sandler, we can see Natalie Portman here, we can see who is here in the middle with the Facebook sign, Mark Zuckerberg. We can see Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we can see our governor, Gerald Polis, who's Jewish as well. And another thing that I added here is, another kind of like stereotypical way that we can see American Orthodox Jews is, it's kind of like the stereotypical Orthodox with the, heavy black clothing, as we will see them in Brooklyn, in New York. And yeah, so what are those stereotypes, or those characteristics of American Jews as we see them? We meaning people from outside of the American Jewish community, or they see themselves. They are mostly white, right? Their roots are from Europe, It's called Ashkenazi Jews, mostly from Eastern Europe. Many times they are connected to a certain socio-economical level, meaning they are, in many cases, will be in will be educated, will be a part of a certain social economical level, and also we connect specific things to their traditions, right? So we know that because they're Jewish, they might know a little bit of Hebrew because maybe sometimes they go to the synagogue or pray, or maybe they are in connection with relatives in Israel, so they might know a little bit of Hebrew. And the language that they consider as Jewish that connects them to their Jewish roots will be, anyone knows? An interesting blend of Hebrew and German that is called Yiddish. And those are typical characteristics that we give American Jews, and basically the situation that was created is that for American Jews and also for people in America that are not Jewish, that are people of other faiths and traditions and cultures, this is Judaism, right? This is not American Jews, or this is not Ashkenazi Jews. Those are the Jews, right? All of the Jews, they're white, they're relatively, from a higher class, they're educated, they speak Yiddish, and they eat, they eat Eastern European Jewish dishes as gefilte fish and matzo ball soup, which we'll touch, later on. But for American Jews themselves, not only from people from the outside, I think that the ironic part that also American Jews themselves, and again, not everyone, but many of them, for them, those characteristics that I mentioned are Jewish. They're not American Jewish, or they're not Ashkenazi Jewish. This is Jewish. And this is a part of the problem or the challenge that made me come up with this talk. And we call this thing Ashkenormativity, meaning that the norm becomes Ashkenazi, becomes European, becomes white. By the way, it's not a phenomenon that happens only within Jews. It happens in all around the world, where we turn the norm, we turn our normal things that we think about our life to be white or to be European, and we don't always include other backgrounds or other colors. And this is why this is my next slide, the reality, not only in the world, but also in the Jewish community, is completely different. You guys can see the next slide. The next slide is actually just a few faces of famous Israeli Jewish people. I think that in most cases they won't tell so much to you, but they're mostly singers. But look at their singers or models or actors, and look at the variety of colors, and look at the diversity that we can see here. This is, and the reason why I'm showing this to you, that not the previous image of the white Ashkenazi European American that we see, of course, that are a part of this puzzle that is called the Jewish people. They're not all of it, right? The real puzzle that is called the Jewish people or the Jewish world is a very colorful puzzle that contains so many, that includes so many backgrounds and so many roots and sources and traditions, and we're going to talk about them a little bit today. So here I'm going to move on forward. We'll start from the beginning, right? So in order for us to understand, right? In order for us to understand what are those sources, what are those roots and backgrounds of Jews that we're talking about, we have to discuss, we'll do it shortly because we can discuss this for so long. We have to discuss a very important question. What is Judaism? Right? And on purpose, I have on the screen also Christianity and Islam, and of course, we can include other religions as well. But let's actually start with with Christianity or Islam. What is Christianity? And I know, and don't get me wrong, I went to religious, religious studies in university, in college, and I know that both Christianity and Islam, the first thing they told us, don't say Christianity or Islam because there are so many, right, streams and groups within Christianity and Islam, but just for the sake of this conversation, right? So Christianity is not an ethnicity, it's not a race, it's definitely a religion, right? Because you can be Arab, right? That your ethnicity is that you're an Arab, and be Christian, and you can be from a certain European ethnicity or race and be Christian, right? Meaning that Christianity will be your religion. Islam is the same, right? We see Muslims in Asia, right? We have Asian Muslims, and we have Arab Muslims. People tend to think that all of the Arabs in the world are Muslims, and that all the Muslims in the world are Arab, but it's not true, right? We have Arabs in the world that are not Muslim, and we have Muslims in the world that are not Arabs, right? To be Arab is ethnicity, right? This is your ethnicity. It means that you are, your roots are from the Arabian Peninsula, from the areas of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and that your mother tongue is Arabic. That means that you're Arab, but you can still be Christian or even Jewish. We'll talk about it in a second, right? So Islam and Christianity are definitely religions. What is Judaism, though? And I'm going to go back. I'm going to jump between my screen to see your guys' faces. And if you want to, write it in the chat, or if you just want to think about it or unmute yourself and say, but, what is Judaism compared to Islam and Christianity? Is Judaism a religion? Yes, for sure it's a religion, but it is not only a religion, right? This is the main difference. Judaism is also, I'm going to go back to my screen. Judaism is also an ethnicity and also a race, right? A race and an ethnicity. And also, in a way, a nationality, right? The state of Israel doesn't call itself the state of the Israelis. What is the definition of the state of Israel? The Jewish state, right? A state of the Jewish people. Meaning, the Judaism is a very complicated combination of a religion, an ethnicity, and a nationality. And part of it is not only how we see ourselves as Jews, but also how people outside of Judaism see ourselves. And I'm going to unfortunately go to a very, sad part in our world history and Jewish history. But do you think that for the Nazi regime or for Hitler, it mattered if someone says Judaism is only my religion or not? For them, Judaism was a race, right? Jews was a race and an ethnicity, and this is not the only way we define ourselves as a race or an ethnicity, but it's a part of it. And this is a very big question in research that many researchers are talking until today. If we take the genome, the genetics of different Jews, will we find a similar genetics within all of them or not? And still, research is still debating this. And I'm bringing up this question because how come Judaism is an ethnicity if Jewish people can look like this, right? All of the people in this picture are Jewish, right? We see here in the upper right part of the screen, it's a famous Israeli model. Her name is Bar Rafaeli, and here we can see an Iraqi Jewish singer named Dudu Tassa, an Ethiopian Jewish singer named Eden, and a Yemenite Jewish singer named Ravid Kahlani, and so on and so forth. So how come all of those people that sometimes it seems like there's no genetic connection or ethnic or race connection between them, how come they're all under this same ethnicity or ethnic group called Jews? So we'll move on forward. Right. So, as we said, the diversity within the Jewish people exists, but now we only need to dive in a little deeper in order to explore it. And the way we'll do it is that we'll start with a little bit of history, right? Who are those Jews? Where did they come from? And now it connects a little bit to our world together. I mean, our world together of ancient resources, right? And ancient stories in the holy books that we have in common. And so, who are those Jews? Who are those Jews that we know that thousands of years ago, about 3,000 years ago, came down all the way from Canaan and from northern areas called the Choran, all the way down south to Egypt, right? We all know the stories of the Jews in Egypt and of the Hebrews, actually, the Israelites in Egypt, how they were slaves to the Egyptians, and the amazing story of the Jews running away from Egypt, of the exile and coming into the land of Israel. But who were those people? Who did we ever think about it? Who were those people that in the first place arrived into Egypt? Who were those groups of people? I'm going to have a very disappointing answer. The answer is that we're not sure. We don't know. It is so long ago. But what we think that those people that we know in our books, in our holy books, that came down to Egypt, were groups of tribes, of Semite tribes, of Semitic tribes. Semitic, that unfortunately we know from the term anti-Semitic, but it doesn't have to go together. Being Semitic meaning that you're a part of an ethnic group of Semites. And those groups, those tribes that came into Egypt about 3,000 years ago, actually more, sorry, about 4,000 years ago, were Semite tribes that researchers think that were called Hyksos. Semite tribes called Hyksos, that we know a little bit about them. We have a few scripts and a little bit of information that we know about them. Again, another whole discussion that we're not gonna expand on at this point, but potentially the beginning of the Jewish people in those Semite tribes called Hyksos that went down to Egypt. Moving on with the story, after the people of Israel came to the land of Israel, the Jews came to the land of Israel, became a people under God, and started the United Kingdom, not the United Kingdom that we know today, the United Kingdom of David and Solomon, right? That we know from our Bible. Around the 8th century, this kingdom started to collapse. And it started to collapse because of a rising of powers from the east. This first power that rose and started to fight against this United Kingdom of David and Solomon, United Jewish Kingdom of David and Solomon, was the Assyrian Empire. And the Assyrian Empire, its roots are in Iraq and Iran of today. And they came and they conquered parts of Israel and the kingdom of Judea of back then, and started for the first time an exile of Jews to the east. I know it's a lot of history, but it's important to understand the backgrounds that we're talking about. So this is the first time the Jews are starting to travel or starting to be exiled or to move into other places, and those other places are eastern kingdoms of today's Persia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, those areas, right? And if we move on forward, right, to the story that we all know, the destruction of the first temple, 586 BCE, the Babylonian Empire is coming, destroying the first temple, the Temple of Solomon, and then there is a massive exile of, especially of the higher groups in the Jewish society, mostly leaders and so on, in the Jewish community to Babylon. Again, we're talking about the same areas of Iraq, Syria, Iran of today, and Jews stay there, right? So we're talking about Jews that arrive into those areas that we just described of Iraq, Iran, Syria, Babylon of thousands of years ago, and they stay there. A little bit later on, when they're allowed, about 70 years after, they're allowed to go back. King Koresh allows them to go back, but many of them don't go back. They love their life there, and they stay there. Many of them stay there, and they develop a Jewish culture in those places that are not within the land of Israel. If we move on forward, the same process continues, right? So the Roman Empire, we know that the land of Israel is a land that always passes hands between empires, and the East was going down, was weakening, and the West, the empires of the West are coming up. The empires of Greek and Rome are rising, and when the Romans take over the land of Israel and the kingdom of Judea, and then there's the destruction of the Second Temple in the year 70 to the Common Era. There's a massive exile of Jews in that time along those two rebellions, around 70 to the Common Era and then 135 to the Common Era, the Bar Kokhba rebellion. And many Jews are moving places within the land of Israel, but they also move to Europe. Many Jews also moved to Europe as well, and to other places among the Roman Empire. And again, this process of Jews spreading around the world continues, and many of them stay in those places and develop their own culture and their own Jewish identity within those new places, right? So we have now Jews around Europe, we have Jews in the East, in the areas of Persia and Iraq, and continue to spread around the world. We move on with our history, and also here we have a continuation of movements of Jews around the world in the Umayyad Empire, which is a part of a huge Muslim empire that stretches all the way from India in the east, all the way to the gates of Paris in the west, and in Cordoba, Spain and Portugal in the west. And Jews are moving around those places, and many of them gather where? In Spain and Portugal. There is a very big group of Jews that find themselves in Spain and Portugal, and again continue this process of developing their own traditions in those places. Our next stage in the history, and I'm going to be done with the history soon. I know that history is hard, and we're going to move on. We're going to dive into those different groups. But in 1492, something very important happens. In 1492 is the Spanish Inquisition. And during the Spanish Inquisition, Jews are not allowed to be Jews in many places around Europe, and especially in Spain and Portugal. And basically they choose two reactions to this. Some of them decide to become not Jewish, to convert to Christianity, and to basically finish the Jewish part of their identity. But it's a very problematic thing to say, because we just said that Judaism is not a religion, right? It's not only a religion. So if it's a part of you, right? If it's a part of your ethnicity or a part of your race or your genome or your genetics, how can you end it? You cannot. You're stuck with it forever, right? But some of the Jews, that's what they were doing, right? So they were hiding. They're either ending or hiding their Jewish identity and stayed in Portugal and Spain. But many of them have left Portugal and Spain, and where did they go to? And this is, I'm going to just go back to see your guys' beautiful faces. Those Jews that left in 1492 Portugal and Spain. Where did they go to? And this is, I think, a kind of a surprising answer. Who was the big empire at the time that really was the only entity in the world at the time that received the Jews with love? They really embraced the Jews that came over. And this empire is the Ottoman Empire, the Muslim Ottoman Empire. And for us, it's hard a little bit to, to kind of like understand or to cope with that, because today we're used to the conflict in the Middle East, and we tend to think that Muslims and Jews are always against each other, which is completely untrue. It's a very recent conflict. And back then, the Muslim Empire embraces the Jewish refugees, gathers them or receives them to its areas, and this is a huge empire. And some of those countries today, back then it was all one big Ottoman Empire, but the countries today that are a part of this land that the Ottoman Empire ruled were countries like Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, Israel, Palestine, all of those countries, and countries in North Africa, of course, right? So Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and all of those countries basically received big numbers of Jews that went there, and again with hundreds of years, right? We're talking about it's only 500 years ago that it happened, a little bit more, 600 years ago, but with in a few hundred years, when you're in a similar place, two things happen. One thing is that you are mixing physically with other people there, right? So Jews not only married Jews, they also got connected and mixed up with locals, right? In those mostly Arab countries, Muslim Arab countries, and also those Spanish Jews that escaped from Spain and Portugal started to develop Jewish identity that is adapted, that is adjusted to the new cultures that they got to. So suddenly my Jewish identity is an Iraqi Jewish identity, right? Or an Egyptian Jewish identity, or a Moroccan Jewish identity. And I am really becoming a Moroccan Jew, or an Iraqi Jew, or an Egyptian Jew, or a Syrian Jew. And basically here in this, in this part of our brief, history, I finished the kind of like overlook on how Jews spread it around the world, and who are those groups that we're going to meet in just a second. Jews actually kept spreading around Europe and other places in the world until the time of the Holocaust of the 30s and 40s of the last century. And back then, where a little bit after the time of the Holocaust, where the State of Israel is formed, and we're going to get to it a little bit later on, this is where the idea of different Jewish groups have started to change, and we started to see a little bit of a phenomenon of a melting pot, but we're going to get to it in a second. So who are those groups that we were talking about, right? So the different Jewish groups, we're talking about those different Jewish groups. We started with the first one, right? The first one, the Ashkenazi Jews. There are about 80% of American Jews, and this is why it is okay that what we know and what we think, that this is the only way that a Jewish person can look like, that it can only be Ashkenazi, can only be European, and that their most common Jewish foods, for example, Jewish cuisines will be matzo ball soup, and will be gefilte fish, and other Eastern European cuisines that some of us resonate with American Jews. As we said, the language that connects many of the Ashkenazi American Jews to their Judaism. Some Ashkenazi American Jews, those that we can see here in the middle, those of an Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox Hasidic tradition, still speak Yiddish, which is a Jewish language from Europe. We said a combination of Hebrew and German. And again, and the reason, by the way, why I'm showing food and music is because food and music are a major part of a person's culture and identity. And sometimes really our identity is measured by how we look, what we speak, what do we believe in, what do we eat, and what are the sounds that are the soundtrack of our lives. And for many Ashkenazis American Jews, maybe the song that most resonates with American Jews is definitely a song that sounds European, that sounds Eastern European, Hava Nagila.
I have no volume.
Yeah, the sound's not coming across.
The sound did not come across?
Through.
Okay, so maybe the sound doesn't come across through the Zoom, but I will keep doing a few seconds of each song just because it will show in the recording later. Sounds good? Okay. So I'm sorry for that. Maybe the sound when you share sound in the Zoom, it doesn't come across, but in the recording it will, and then whoever will go to the recording will be able to see it. But I'm moving forward anyway. I wasn't planning on showing you full songs because we don't have time for this. But Hava Nagila is, it's a famous song, very, with sounds that are very Eastern European. And here we're going to move on forward. All right, from the Ashkenazi Jews, we're going into a group that is a group that gathers together the other different Jewish groups. So saying Sephardic Jews or Spanish Jews is a very general saying because we know that those Spanish Jews ran away to other different countries. So Spanish Jews, as we said, are Jews that their background is from Spain, but after the Spanish Inquisition, had to run away to many other places, mostly in the Ottoman Empire, many Arab countries. Many of those Spanish Jews, by the way, like my grandma, and I'm going to shortly talk about my family at the end, went to Turkey, for example, and many of them speak a very interesting Jewish version of Spanish called Ladino or Spaniolit. And in this video, we see a famous Ladino singer that, by the way, her background is that she's Turkish as well. Her name is Yasmin Levy. And later on in the recording, you will be able to sense the flamenco, Spanish feeling of her music. All right, moving forward, again, it will be in it will be in the recording. I will also share with you guys links to the music that you can actually listen to it. And from those Spanish Jews, the people that ran away from Spain, most of those Jews are Jews of Arab countries in North Africa, meaning people that went to Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and so on. And those Jews really have become, both physically and culturally, Arab Jews. And this is, again, a very confusing term. How come for us, it is very hard for us to process that a Jew or that a Jewish person can be Arab. But again, as we said, and I'm taking you back to one of our first slides, being an Arab is ethnicity, meaning that if your roots are from Arab countries or from the Arab Peninsula, and if your mother tongue is Arabic, meaning that you're an Arab. But if you're Jewish, you can be an Arab Jew. And those people really develop an Arab Jewish identity. We can see here a few pictures, here specifically of Jews from North Africa. Here we can see around my cross, my pointer, you can see a Moroccan Jewish family. Here in the bottom, a Jewish family from Tunisia, and we can see all kinds of dishes of North African and Arab Jews. We can see a spicy fish in a Moroccan style. We can see Moroccan style couscous. We can see kube, which is an amazing dumpling that is filled with meat that you usually eat either in a soup or not. And its root is, the roots are either from Iraq and Syria area. So again, there is an Arab Jewish identity that is developed within Jews in those countries. And then moving forward, this is an Israeli singer that is from Iraqi roots named Dudu Tassa, that is very connected to the roots of his grandpa and his uncle from Iraq, that used to be huge singers in Iraq, and he sings a lot of music in Arabic. All right, I'm moving forward. I'm making those videos really short because I know that you guys cannot hear them. And I'm jumping right into another group, of Jews that is separate, again, from this group of Sephardic or Spanish Jews or Arab Jews, are Persian Jews. And for those of us that are not sure, Persians, while being Muslim, most Persians, right, in Iran, in Persia, are not Arab. Persians are not Arab. They're Persians. This is also their ethnicity. They're Persians. And same for the Jews. The Persian Jews are Jews that mostly, in most cases, have stayed in Persia all the way from the times of the Babylonian exile. Do you guys remember that just 10, 15 minutes ago, we were talking about the Babylonian exile and how Jews were transferred from the land of Israel into Babylon, into Persia, into Iran and Iraq of today. And those Jews, many of them have stayed there and again developed their own Persian Jewish identity. On the right picture, but in the left picture, I have a picture of Persian Jews in Persia. In recent times, there's still a few Persian Jews in Iran today. But on the right picture, you can see Westwood, California, Westwood in LA, a place that also got the interesting nickname Tehrangeles, right? The Persian area of Los Angeles, where there's a major Persian population. And really, for those of us that walked around Westwood, you can really feel like you're a little bit in Tehran. All the restaurants, all the stores, everything is Persian. And it's an amazing experience. For those of you that didn't get to do it, I really recommend. And in this community, in this Persian community in LA, in Tehrangeles, there's a major Jewish Persian community of Persian Jews. Many of them escaped from Iran around the time of the revolution at the late 70s of the last century. So Persian Jews, right? Another another Jewish culture that was developed again with its own language, right? Speaking Persian, and with its own food and music and so on. But I'm moving forward just that we can cover some of the rest of the group as well. Another group that I'm going to talk about is the Yemenite Jewish group. The reason, and you will tell me, hey, wait a second, Yemenites are Arab, right? So how come you don't include them in those Spanish Jews that are a part of the Arab Jewish culture? The reason for this is that the Yemenites are some of the only groups of Arab Jews that did not come from Spain. The Yemenites have stayed in Yemen, have been to Yemen. The Yemenite Jews have been to Yemen and stayed in Yemen for thousands of years, for about 2,500 years. And they actually have never been to Spain. And this is why they're not Spanish Jews. They have not spoke Spanish or Spaniolit or Ladino at any part of their lives. And they really stayed away from any other Jewish culture and became Yemenite Jews. They speak or they pray Hebrew with a very special dialect that other Jews cannot even recognize or understand. And as you guys can see, they're very dark. Yemen is located in the southern part of the Arab Peninsula, very close to Africa. And again, we can see another Jewish group with their own music, their own language, their own way of praying and traditions, and also their own food is the Yemenite soup. Is a very heavily spiced soup with usually with beef or lamb. And as in his other dishes is jachnun, which is fried dough with a lot of margarine. So very interesting kind of kitchen is the Yemenite kitchen, and very interesting kind of Yemenite, of a very traditional Arabic music. I'm just going to play it for a few seconds, that we'll have it for the recording. Another group within all of those colorful Jewish groups that we're talking about is the Ethiopian Jews. And the Ethiopian Jews are talking about their roots. The Ethiopian Jews are talking about their roots as they were going all the way back to King Solomon, right? And the Queen of Sheba. And they see themselves as the direct descendants of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. And in recent years, Ethiopian Jews, after all kinds of discussion, and again, this is for another whole topic, what different groups of Jews are being recognized by others, because by Orthodox Jews, not all Ethiopian Jews are recognized as Jews, but it's a part of the discussion in the Jewish world, and a part of the process that the Jewish world is experiencing in the last few decades. And the Ethiopian Jews have an amazing culture. They speak one of the spoken languages in Ethiopia called Amharic. And here I have an example for some of the common food in Ethiopian culture being eaten mostly with the hands, and with a special bread called injera, that you can find in Ethiopian restaurants, even here in the States. And Ethiopian Jews have some special holidays that are special and unique for them, such as a holiday called Sigd, and And again, as I said, they struggle with the fight over their Jewish recognition as Jews in Israel our days. Definitely a difficult struggle they experience, and we all hope that with the time, Ethiopian Jews will also be able to feel as they are blending into the Jewish melting pot that we're going to talk about in a second, that was developed in Israel. And I'm going to skip this for now. I just know that we don't have much time left, and I know that we can't hear my sound. And on top of those other groups, there are a few other small groups that exist in different parts of the world. There's a Jewish community in China. There's a Jewish community in India, in the area of Cochin. There's a Jewish community in Uganda called the Abba Yudaya, the sons of Judah, the children of Judah. There are the mountains Jews, the mountain Jews coming from the mountains of the Caucasus, of the area of Chechnya and Georgia and southern in Central Asia and southern Russia. And really all of those groups create this big puzzle that is called the Jewish people. I'm going to skip this just from a lack of time. And I will say, and I will start to kind of like summarize and close here and say that what happened is that after again the devastating tragedy of the Holocaust and rising anti-Semitism and racism around the world in the last century, many of the Jews started to escape their countries of origin, and many of them got to Israel. And in Israel, what happened is that it was the beginning of a melting pot. And today, we can't really define what kind of Jews are you or to which group you belong, because many Jews, again, especially in Israel, as we said, most of the Jews in America are Ashkenazi Jews, but in Israel, the phenomenon we see is a blend of all of those groups, and it's very hard to define one specific group that a person belongs to, because all of us pretty much are a mix of different groups, different Jewish ethnic groups. Shortly, I just wanted to show you my family. You can see I'm here in the center, and Colby, my wife, here with my grandparents, Saba Shlomo, my grandpa Shlomo, who was born in Paris and moved to Israel after Second World War, after the Holocaust. And his wife, Shoshana, is from Iraq. On the other side of my family, this is my dad's family, you can see my grandma, Aliza, that was born in Istanbul, Turkey. And her husband, my grandpa, Aaron, that is a Yemenite Jew that was born and grew up in Yemen. Now think about that mix that created me. So I'm part Yemenite, part Turkish, part Iraqi, and my grandpa was born in France, in Paris, but his roots are coming actually from Turkey as well. So look at this crazy mix. And think even about our son, where Colby, my wife, her roots are from Europe, right? And an Ashkenazi Jew. So think about this mix, this melting pot that we're creating. Here is a quote from the Bible that I wanna finish with, from Psalms, from the Song of Solomon. Shchora ani venava benot Yerushalayim. I am dark, or I am black, in this is the direct Hebrew translation. I am black and beautiful, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. And kind of like as a concluding note, I think we have a fascinating puzzle or a fascinating rainbow, which is the Jewish world. The Jewish world is not only white or not only black or not only dark. It is a puzzle of many cultures and many identities that gather together into one people. And I think for us, whether we're a part of the Jewish community or not, it is always a good idea to try and open our eyes and open our horizons to the different colors that surround us, right? Unrelated, now I'm saying it completely unrelated to the Jewish world. Really open our eyes to the different colors and traditions and cultures that surround us. And I can share with you that definitely within the Jewish community, me and my colleagues and my friends were working really hard to raise the awareness within the Jewish world to the different colors that we're fortunate to have within us. Thank you guys so much for listening. I encourage you guys to send me questions, to ask me questions. I know that we're already done with our time, so I'm passing it to Jen, but I'm always available for you for anything to come, and I hope you enjoyed. Jen.
And did you turn all of our microphones on, or just mine?
Just yours is on. I can turn all the other people as well.
Turn them on
Yep.
for a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Noam. We learned a lot this morning about what you were just talking about all these amazingly diverse Jewish cultures, and thank you for that. I see Ken here joining us. Hi, Ken. I do thank you for that, and I would like to give folks just a moment to say what they would like to say to you. Just 2 or 3 folks. Let's just hear it briefly and leave a note for Noam so that he knows what we thought. Okay, the floor is open.
So this is Amy. I just have a question. So you were talking about Judaism as an ethnicity and a religion. So when they're saying that the Ethiopians are not universally recognized as Jewish, on which basis? On the religious basis or the ethnic basis?
You're asking the $1 million question. So when I said that that Ethiopians are not recognized,
Amy always does that.
Yeah. So when I said that Ethiopians are not recognized as Jews, is not by all Jews, but it's by specific Jewish groups, specific Orthodox Jewish groups. Again, also not by all of them. And then the important question is, are they not recognized because those groups believe that they don't have Jewish ethnic roots, or maybe they're not recognized because there is some racist background to this decision to not recognize them because the color of their skin. So you're definitely, Amy, asking the $1 million question. And I mean, hopefully what I'm hoping to see as an Israeli is Ethiopian Jews blending. They're already blending into Israeli society, and we see more and more Ethiopians in key roles and major roles in Israeli society, and also recognized as Jews. But I'm hoping to see this increasing, and to see the racist parts around decisions of not including them as a part of the Jewish community or a part of the Israeli community. I hope to see it fading away from our world and from our country.
Thank you, Noam. 1 or 2 other comments.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes.
All of this would come under the title Jewish diaspora, the diaspora of the Jewish people out of the Holy Land. And most diaspora Jews, I just want to point out, live right here in the United States of America, and thank goodness for it, because they've given us Simon and Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas by Irving Berlin, the Hollywood movie stars, and a multitude of Nobel Prizes. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for this comment. And I just want to say that, I'm grateful for this comment. Of course, we have all those amazing things that came from 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 American Jews, which definitely I think in a way American Jews are living in some kind of a golden age of Judaism here in America, of freedom and opportunities. But a part of it is to embrace what those part of American Jews gave us, while not forgetting that also other Jews from other colors and other traditions that are not European also provide us. But for sure, I don't want this talk to be understood as I'm trying to to confront or underestimate Ashkenazi or European Jews. They're definitely a major important part of this beautiful rainbow of the Jewish world. They're just not the only one of it.
Yeah.
Okay, one last comment. Daryl.
Yeah, very well done, Noam. Thank you so much.
He has on oxygen.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Daryl is on some. You better say something, Daryl.
Well, I think I've had
Say
a
something about your
onset
oxygen,
again of
please.
the pneumonia that I had, and so I need to be on oxygen now. We're hoping that will fix everything. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Ken, is there anything you would like to say before we close?
I'm just glad that Noam's one of my friends. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the friendship
Yeah.
and Colby. And again, it's just one of these great gifts we're having at Trinity, where we have this influx of brilliant young minds. And I commend Trinity Academy for being an intergenerational space for us to learn and grow together. So thank you all for a great season of Trinity Academy, and it's great to see everybody's beautiful faces on Zoom.
Good PR in the Denver Post today.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, and we will be getting ready for Paula's prayer. Yeah. And Ken, do you see that youngest mind that we have here with us?
I see.
Did you see their baby boy right here? Yeah.
Oh, gorgeous.
We're
Gorgeous.
coming to a close, and Paul will do the prayer. I just want to say a couple of things. We're coming to Memorial Day weekend, and I want to assure those of you who are a part of Trinity Academy that we are looking forward to the coming year. In early June, our planning team is going to meet one last time to take a look at some of the logistical challenges that we're going to confront during this coming year, and we will take care of it, and we'll let you know how we're doing that. We are so pleased that several familiar speakers, in addition to Dr. Hernandez, have signed on to teach us some new things, and that new speakers, suggested by some of you, have confirmed as well. It's going to be a good year. We will showcase this new program in a June communication. Thank you all for being here, and remember that you can tell your friends if this is available in YouTube. And Paula, could you close us with your prayer?
Yes, thank you, Jan. Today's closing prayer builds on the words of the 27th Psalm, which are, God is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? God is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Let us pray. My beloved one, how easily do I allow fear to be the soil of my life? 10,000 fears cluster at my door, fears of death and of life, fears of thieves and evil, fears of sickness and old age, fears of employment and war, fears of being shamed and injured. I believe that you love me with all my thoughts and failings, and if in your embrace, whom or what should I fear? Teach me the wisdom of caution, to live with a watchful eye, and liberate me from all fear. O blessed one, you are my insurance and my pledge. You are my defense and security, my ground. And your love is my sole safety. Of whom shall I be afraid? Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Noam. Thank you, Jan.
so much, Noam.
Thank you.